It's very simple. What we do is treat people like we want to be treated and make ridiculously good ice cream.
You're listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast, coming to you from the Kitchen Studios, located high atop the historic Raleigh building, located in the heart of downtown Raleigh. The NC F&B Podcast takes you behind the scenes of North Carolina's food and beverage industry. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at NCFBPod. This episode is sponsored in part by Food Scene. That's foodseen.com. Providing professional photography, social media management, video production, and website design. That's Food Scene. And now, the sommeliers to the stars, the barbacks in your backyard. It is Max and Matt.
Hello to my misophonia friends, and thank you for listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. I am your co-host, Max Trujillo.
And I am your co-host, Matthew Weiss. And today in studio, we have the king of ice cream in the Triangle, Mr. Jared Plummer, the owner and creator of Two Roosters Ice Cream.
Hello, wonderful world.
You're going out to all 43 people listening.
Oh, yeah.
No, finally, Jared, finally.
It is time.
It's
past time.
We've been kidding around, but Two Roosters has been important to the Trujillo family, I'll say that straight off, and the community. And because one of your brick and mortars is located just a stone's throw from my house, we heavily anticipated the opening of that shop, and we've been talking about having you on the show since then. I believe you opened on National Ice Cream Day a year ago?
We did, and it's perhaps the best decision and the worst decision I've ever made.
Blessing and a curse.
That's right.
But today we're talking about ice cream. We're talking about ice cream with a local business owner that is expanding. He has done many versions of probably all the different ways you can get ice cream into someone's mouth.
Just about, except a vending machine. But we're working on it.
Oh.
I don't want to share too many secrets.
Well, you got to share them all. I mean, this is like the Barbara Walters of food, you know?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
we have tissues here in case you feel like crying.
Exactly.
So tell me about your mother.
Well, actually, that's a good place to start because
Your grandmother.
Yeah,
actually.
your grandmother was your inspiration. Is that right?
Indeed, yeah. Her name was Alma Pope, and we referred to her as Granny. And
Okay.
she lived about a mile from us growing up, so she was basically a second mom.
Oh, wow, that's cool. And that's where you picked up churning ice cream by hand, peach ice cream by hand?
That is correct. So as the story goes, we would spend summer evenings at her house and on her front porch. We loved it. We had several cousins in the area. And yeah, we would just break out this was before like the electrical ones came out, right? So this was like old school child labor, hand crank ice cream. So we would take turns on that guy, and I am still convinced that yes, indeed, homemade peach ice cream in the summer is the best ice cream you can ever have.
And they were local peaches brought over like by people who were growing them nearby, or?
Yeah, we would source things to the farmers markets and so forth. We grew up right outside Greensboro, so in the triad of North Carolina, so very fertile and just accessible to all sorts of fruits and produce, and we had just had a great time with it.
Nice. So yeah, I'm sure that's very impactful for a kid sitting on grandma's porch eating ice cream, and then the thing that she had two roosters on her porch. That's why you call it Two Roosters today.
Absolutely, yeah. Tribute to Granny.
But tribute to Granny. But you had a long, not career, but academic. You grew up. You became a man, a person, got married.
That's right.
Before you got back to ice cream.
That's right. So yeah, I like to say that ice cream sort of found me.
Okay.
Many years later, after the whole Granny ice cream experience as a kid. So
By the way, you went from you now do something that everyone loves, but you used to do something that everyone hated.
Pretty much, yeah.
You were an auditor.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of scary, actually. Well, here's my one joke, and maybe I'll leave it at this for the podcast, but I still refer to myself as a bean counter, but now it's just vanilla beans.
Yeah,
so,
nice.
But yeah, I have an education degree from NC State in accounting, master's in accounting, Fun fact, I actually have my CPA license, so
Do you
don't
do-
ask me to do your taxes.
Okay. Do you do your own taxes?
I don't do my own,
Okay.
so yeah.
Was that the plan? Like, were you going to go open up your own CPA shop? And,
You know, I don't really know.
Okay.
The path was sort of wandering and meandering, and did the CPA life for about 8 years or so.
Okay.
And did some teaching actually at NC State on the side, and
yeah, you were the assistant director of the program
the
at one point.
the master's
so you weren't
program.
You weren't a slouch or anything like that.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't the accountant, where's my pocket protector type of accountant. I was very active and doing lots of various things, but just the passion wasn't there. And
Is
that's
this
when
like a degree to satisfy mom and dad's like requests? It's like, get a real job.
No, they've been super supportive of everything, really. Neither one of them went to college, so just for me to go to the university was amazing experience. Grew a lot.
Were you really good in math in high school?
I was. That's
Okay.
sort of what led me. Actually,
Okay.
I thought I was going to be an engineer. Applied to one college, NC State. It's the best engineering
Great
school.
engineering school, yeah.
So all eggs in the basket, and got in. And then after my introductory to engineering class, decided that was not for me, and sort of wandered around for a semester or two, and then took some business classes, and then ended up taking an accounting class, got the highest average in the class. They said you should really think about accounting, and that's really how it happened. There was I think I had one random uncle somewhere that was a CPA, but never
Not really
model.
like in the bloods.
Yeah.
So you're toiling in accounting, and then where's the moment that's because then you first opened up the truck, the ice cream truck, right?
Yeah. So as the backstory, it was really a creative outlet. When I would come home, from the office, and I would be invited to these dinner things, and I just started tinkering, just like a lot of people do with various things. It just so happens it was ice cream for me. And I mean, I still have the little Cuisinart machines that we all have that you stick in the freezer and do the whole home ice cream thing. That's
For
how
those
it
of you
started.
listening in the Northeast, that's Cuisinart.
Oh yeah, sorry.
or in the West, or anywhere else, to be honest.
I'm from the South,
Yeah,
so
I like
I will apologize multiple times
No,
for
please,
how
it's
I
charming.
pronounce
It's
things. But yeah, that's how it was. It was a hobby.
That's a great thing. So, like, you're invited to dinner parties or somebody's house or something. What should I bring? I'll make homemade ice cream. Everybody loves you.
It's the best way to make friends. It really is, because like you were alluding to, there's not many people that don't like some form of ice cream.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a hobby. I always say it was a hobby that turned into an obsession, that turned into a business. That was sort of the progression. I feel like a lot of people can relate to that in some way. And
Totally.
For me, it just happened to be ice cream.
I think that's been an underlining theme with a lot of people that have been on our show. But that's great. I mean, don't spend all your time and burn all these calories doing something you don't love if you're going to go into business for yourself. It's like, find what you really want to do and then do that. And in doing that, you are at the halfway point. I don't know if you know this or not, but you have been an ice cream man just as long as you've been an accountant.
Yeah, that's kind of scary.
You're at the halfway point. So now you've turned this into a business. And by the way, a lot of this great information that you're talking about could all be heard on Weddings for Reals podcast. Megan Gillikin, who was a recent guest on our show, interviewed you and had a great and thorough explanation of your story and all that. So if anyone's looking for great content and you like that interview with Megan, check her out. Weddings for Real podcast. You can get it anywhere you get podcasts. But shout out to her. You guys were talking about making that adjustment, making that switch. It's got to be terrifying, especially for your brand new wife at the time, right? You had just been married, and you have a solid job. You're an accountant. I mean, they're going to be around forever. Cockroaches and lawyers and accountants, right?
She thought she was marrying stability, and it's far from that. But yeah, it's funny. Our first date, I actually dropped it on her because I had been in that sort of tinkering phase with ice cream and sort of like the business.
When you were single, you got invited to dinner parties?
I know, right? It's kind of weird.
That is weird.
Yeah.
I guess when you're an accountant, people are like, yeah, come over to our house. Could you just look at this? I got I got
Someone gave me a
it's like being a doctor. Like, I got this elbow thing going on.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was in that tinkering phase that I started dating my now wife. And I remember we were sitting at a sushi joint and I just laid it out for her. I said, there's some weird things you should know. One of them is I really like ice cream. And she didn't run away. So
That's awesome.
I thought that was pretty good sign that maybe we can work this out.
Right.
Yeah.
So to go back to the whole terrifying part. So she knew that even before we got married. She knew that it was sort of bubbling, and then we got married, and I was continuing to work as a CPA for, I don't know, it's probably about a year or so, and then I really started to get the itch. And she was supportive. We were very strategic with our personal finances. We saved. We were really planning for this, and that would have been sort of late 2014, and then we built the food truck and launched in the streets in 2015.
If you listen to this show, you probably agree with us that North Carolina is a pretty amazing place. We have an emerging beer scene, countless chef-driven restaurants, craft cocktail bars that will even put Manhattan on their heels. That's right, Matt. I told you that. We're seeing the growth of all these really exciting restaurants, so let me tell you, every successful restaurant has one thing in common: a point-of-sale system that works for them. Cake is the point-of-sale system that lets bar and restaurant owners focus on their guest experience. Stop worrying about tracking every sale. Cake does that for you. You can automatically save information and review it later from anywhere. That means you can actually take days off and see your family. Wouldn't that be cool? To get started with Cake, check out trycake.com/NCFB. For our listeners, you can get $750 off the activation fee. That's a 75% discount. And with that discount, you get user-friendly point-of-sale solutions that include cloud reporting and world-class 24/7 support. So, restaurant owners, go to trycake.com/NCFB and take a look. Cake makes it easy. One would say it's a piece of cake. I said that.
How do you go from making ice cream and tinkering with recipes on a scale, bringing it for parties, for dinner parties, to making enough for having for a truck and, say, going to a festival or going on the street?
That's still a great question even now for where the business is.
Yeah.
How do we have enough, right? Well, for one, I should say, prior to making it on a full scale, I had never worked in an ice cream shop, never was a scooper, I'd never had any experience. I just loved ice cream. And so I actually, when I transitioned from one accounting job to another, I took a few weeks and actually went to ice cream school. It's up in New York City. It's run by this guy that I refer to as the godfather of ice cream. It's loosely called Ice Cream University, which is kind of
I see you.
Yeah, that's right. I see you. And spent, I don't know, a couple weeks up there just really learning the craft, sort of the science, some about the business. And through that experience, one of the classes was all about non-dairy ice cream, which at the time, that would have been 2011. So that trend hadn't really started to pick up. It was just coming on. And so through that experience, I met a few other ice cream business owners that were existing, had operations, and I essentially went and worked for free. I went to 3 different sort of areas in the country outside of our market here in Raleigh.
What areas were those?
Well, I went to New York, and then I
New York
went
City?
New York City, and then Philadelphia, and then Park City, Utah, which I, side note, parlayed into a snowboard trip.
Nice. Well done.
Yeah, and then some training in Florida. So one of the operations that has become really successful is Little Babies in Philadelphia, and I still consider those guys friends. I contact them if I have questions about random things, and they're just awesome guys. So close friends in the ice cream world.
So that was smart. So how did you find out about ICU?
Yeah,
Ice Cream University.
Google is like a big brain. You can just it's amazing what you can find out.
Because you're
in there.
thinking about damn, I need to get out of accounting. I want to get into ice cream. How do I do it?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And I knew that the battle was an uphill one, just because I had no real experience working in the ice cream industry. I had the business training, going to business school, and I worked with a lot of small businesses through the accounting stuff, which I think has served me well.
Yeah.
to be able to, sort of like knowing a foreign language and then actually traveling to that country, like Spanish, and then going to Spain.
Yeah.
You can actually sort of get around and ask questions in that language. Having an accounting background going into like starting a business is very similar to that. I can read a profit and loss statement and talk, oh yeah, you should probably keep those receipts, that sort of thing.
Maybe even in the question Matt asked about like scaling on a recipe, like going, okay, if I'm just going to make a gallon of it, but now I'm going to make 40 gallons, you're like, now I can actually expand upon and make this a large production, right?
Yeah. So when transitioning out of the home kitchen, I was thinking, well, for one, the Department of Ag was not going to let me do it in our, third-story apartment building. Neither was that very practical for.
Well, technically, you can,
well,
right?
I guess
that was something that we had spoken with Kim
Hammer.
Hammer, that when she was making her beady cakes, yeah,
or whatever.
when she was making her desserts, she was able to do it out of her home kitchen because the state of North Carolina allows you to get a commercial license for residential areas. But again, you only have residential grade quality. Yeah. So you needed to expand.
Yeah, especially on the freezer side. I mean, we can only fit a few pints in our home freezer, so that was really the bottleneck in the production cycle.
Did you go to like commissaries?
Yeah, so that was when I first started dreaming, 2011. When it started to get really serious was 2014, and so I went and researched like the commissary part of the business, and at the time, in the food industry, they were really, especially in Wake County and Raleigh, they really frowned upon sharing kitchens. If not, that's impossible to do. Right. So I had talked.
Will Pettis wasn't on the scene yet.
Yeah, good. Recent episode of the Kitchen Archive, Will Pettis talked about all of that struggle and how he saw there was a huge need because there was a void of quality commissaries, and so he thought, well, how about I open one? Then he opened another. And now he's got a third.
Yeah. So Will actually, he's done a great job. We ran around together on the food truck circuit when he was just doing the food truck.
Oh, yeah.
So I know Will.
They got their burgers and shakes, and then he would say, "Why don't you go get some ice cream over there?"
Exactly. They have some
day.
of the best seasoned fries. That I could just eat them all day. But yeah, so when I was thinking of moving out of the home kitchen into a more commercial style, there was. For me at the time, there was really only one option that I could find that was workable, and that was at the Cookery in Durham.
Oh, yeah.
So the Cookery was sort of a forerunner in that whole commissary shared kitchen idea.
Yeah, I think our good buddy Jacob Boehm uses.
He does.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jacob and I. Yep.
I deal with them in my day job. They're actually really wonderful people, I have to say.
Yeah. The Cookery folks are.
Yeah. Well, I deal with Tammy over there, and she's like every time I get a sidebar, every time I get like a message or email from her, it's always like, and I hope you're really having a wonderful day or something really positive like that. I'm like, I really enjoy that.
Yeah. Another sidebar. You guys should talk to Nick and Rochelle about coming on.
Oh yeah, of Dashi and Tony Soros
and the Cookery.
The Cookery,
and they just added the food truck they bought, Tsum Tsum Pita truck.
That's right.
So the Cast Iron Group is their thing.
Iron Group.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were hanging out with Nick up at the James Beard Awards with
that's right.
Yeah, with everybody, with the Ashley's gang.
And he's part of that gang. Yeah. So, anyways, so when we were moving into the Cookery, we started to think about scale. So I started with a little machine that churned out 6 quarts, so a gallon and a half at a time.
Not too much.
And that's how we started the food truck.
Oh wow,
a gallon and a half at a time.
And so you must have been running out pretty often.
Yeah, well, so for about 18 months, I was actually doing it. For lack of a better term, side hustle.
Yeah.
But essentially a full growing business on the side. So I was
you were still an accountant.
I was still doing accounting to pay the bills at home and to keep sort of our marriage intact. And then, so 18 months, I was doing both until it got to a place where I was just turning down so many things with the food truck that I just decided to go for it.
Nice. So you said you put in your notice with the accounting firm, or was that with NC State? You were accounting for
Long
both?
story, started at an accounting firm, went to NC State, went back to another accounting firm, and so it would have been the second accounting firm.
You said, I'm done, put in your notice, I'm going full-time into the food truck.
That's right. And they were super understanding. It was like I had a dream. They even let me scale back to sort of part-time or three-quarter time while I was doing the food truck. So I could do a lot of things, several shifts during the week, and then obviously weekends. So it's sort of all a blur at this point because I was just working all the time.
I do have a question of that, and I know we've talked about quite a bit of food trucks now, but when you're starting out a food truck, is there a schedule of where you can be, or like how do you strategically plan out, okay, I'm going to be here, then I'm going to go there, and then how do you do that?
Yeah, it's sort of evolved over the last several years. The market here in the Triangle is fairly saturated with food trucks now. But when we started, we're a dessert truck, so it operates a little bit differently. There's only so many competitors in that space, and even more so the frozen dessert space. So for us, it's a little bit of a different approach. But in those early days, there was a couple of locations, like commercial building locations, that I would just say, okay, I'm going to go do this just to get our name out there. And then on the weekends, it was like literally every day, every weekend, festival, every event. I was the weekend warrior with ice cream for about a year and a half. And I was doing a lot of things here in Raleigh and Durham, really just wherever the people were. Yeah. That's where I was.
And was that the plan in your head at that point? Like, I'm just going to food truck it and go crazy and make as much money as I can, and hopefully it'll be the thing?
Yeah, I think the long term was always to do a brick and mortar.
Okay.
Just, that was sort of the initial goal. But to get there, I knew the capital outlay was going to be pretty intense. And so we had saved, but not enough to
go brick and
mortar full scale at that point. So in my mind, the food truck was still a risk for our family and for my professional life, but it was somewhat of a lower risk. So I think that's for a lot of food truckers, that's how they see it. They're going from being a chef in a restaurant or something, and then they say, I want to do my own thing, but I don't have the resources to go and do a full-blown kitchen, restaurant myself.
The first time I saw you guys out in the field as a food truck, it was at the voice of the NC F&B podcast, Brian Hoyle's Freedom Balloon Festival. And I believe you did this. This might have been the inaugural or the second year of them doing this. It's a massive and amazing festival that happens on Memorial Day weekend. Also my next door neighbor and, a very close friend. And I remember going there, and you just had this line. It was so obnoxiously long, but I had my kids, and they're like, we're getting ice cream.
Right.
I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to stand here for the next hour and a half. Honey, go do whatever you want. And I was standing there, and I was like, but I'm like, I did want that ice cream. And after I had it, I was like, and I didn't realize I didn't know anything about you. And as I got closer and I started seeing the flavors, I'm like, oh, this isn't just mint chip and pralines and cream. This is some crazy stuff. We'll get into that in a moment. Yeah. But first, I want to hear about where you go and like how you made this brick and mortar decision and all. But that'll be right after we talk about the Triangle Wine Company,
who has 3, soon to be 4 any day now, probably open by the time you hear this episode. Yeah.
Because this episode was recorded 4 years ago. So, Chris, Glenn, if you haven't opened it by now, that's on you. No. But 4 locations, Holly Springs, Morrisville, Cary, and Southern Pines. So you get your golf on, you get your wine on out there at Pinehurst. Good friends of the show, you go to trianglewineco.com to order online. You get delivery. You get discounts if you use the NCFB promo code. They have the...
You're talking about a Corvin?
No, it's not a Corvin.
But it's a Corvin for champagne.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
They can pop beautiful bottles. Like they're doing Dom and Perrier-Jouet and Veuve Clicquot and a bunch of like smaller houses by the glass. So while you're shopping, you can get some champagne, and it's fairly inexpensive. Like I think they're doing Dom for like $25 a glass, which, that's not cheap. But for Dom, that's pretty cheap.
Yeah.
So swing by, go to any of the locations, tell them that Max and Matt said hello. What should we be drinking right now, Matt? It's the winter. What's a good winter wine? I just totally put you on the spot.
Yeah. I'm thinking Northern Rhone, like Saint Joseph, Côte Rôtie if you got the money.
Yeah.
Some Hermitage.
That sounds good.
And if you don't have the money, well, San Josef is usually a pretty affordable version of those others. So, and you can definitely find many options of those at Triangle Wine Co.
Anyhow, go to trianglewineco.com and use the promo code NCFB podcast. But now, let's talk about National Ice Cream Day. You opened up. I was there. There was a line, again, every time I want ice cream from Two Roosters, just got to wait in this line. It takes forever. No, I'm kidding. But it shows that people really care. I mean, there was anticipation for you to open a spot. It's in the Greystone Center, North Raleigh. But you were really smart about that area because you have Gonza. It's a great little Mexican joint. You have the Greystone playground, indoor playground, so kids locked in. Then later on, you had the Bottle Rev that opened after you, but also is a great beer bottle shop.
Sola Coffee, so the parents can get coffee, kids can get ice
I was going
cream.
to get to Sola because Sola was the guys that helped you get going.
Yeah, they're part of the story.
And Sola helped you get the milk and the cream to get you off the ground. Was that why you chose that neighborhood, since Sola was like a beacon in that spot? Or?
Yeah, let me comment on Sola because they're wonderful friends and they really have helped us. To go back to this whole idea of starting this hobby in our little apartment kitchen. So when we sort of said, okay, we're doing this, we're moving this into a commissary at the cookery, I wanted to start tinkering with a real dairy base for ice cream. Up to that point, I had been making my own base, milk, cream, sugar, etc. But I knew that was not sustainable. So as the story goes, Homeland Creamery, which is a great little dairy here in North Carolina, they make their dairy mix, but they obviously would not deliver it to a third-story apartment room.
Right.
And so I reached out to some friends that just happened to own Sola Coffee and Cafe in North Raleigh, which we live just a few miles from there. And so what would happen is I would call the dairy. They would bring, a couple days later, a 5-gallon bucket of dairy mix, ice cream mix, and they would drop it at Sola. The owner of Sola, John, would either call or text me at like 5:30 in the morning. And then I would have to go get it and then bring it and then clear out everything on the bottom of our refrigerator to fit this 5-gallon bucket of dairy mix. And so then I would take the mix and just tinker throughout the week with various recipes. So I have always had a huge appreciation for Sola, and that's why when I was thinking about our sort of forever flavors or our what we call the regular flavors, I wanted to pay tribute to Sola because they were so helpful in those really early days. And then, so when we were transitioning, thinking, okay, we got the food truck, but now we want to expand into the brick and mortar. Just so happens we also live in North Raleigh, and we love the shopping center because you have Gonza, as you mentioned, Gonza, Bottle Rev, Papa's Pizza, Indoor Playground, Kai Sushi,
sushi.
Sola Coffee, and then Old School Sawmill Tap Room for all the locals. And so we just thought, man, this is an incredible little sort of hidden shopping center just in the middle of sort of urban Raleigh.
Yeah.
And we live really close. And so I cold called because there was no availability when we were making these decisions. And so I cold called the property manager and just said, hey, this is who we are. Here's a little bit of our story. And that set for almost a year. Like I would call him maybe once a month just to make sure he knew that I was interested. And then lo and behold, there was ironically a sort of quasi smoothie shop that they were going to be transitioning to more of a consulting business rather than having a retail smoothie operation. And so I got this phone call out of the blue from the property manager saying, hey, these guys actually want out of their lease a year early. Are you still interested? And it was a gift. I mean, unbelievable timing. You know, it was just like, I could not have planned that. And the location, it's just been amazing.
I've marveled at that location because you see how everybody, it's the most symbiotic relationship that I've seen in Raleigh in such a concentrated area. It all just makes so much sense that whether the property manager knew exactly what he was doing or it all just fell into place. I'm sure that they like to give themselves some credit, but I'm sure they did a pretty good job. But I mean, it all just really works well. And I think other developers need to go swing over to the Greystone Center to see like how that works. And even parking's great. Like all of it is pretty good, except for when you're giving away free ice cream on your opening day.
Yeah, that was insane. It's still, that opening day is still a little bit of a blur because the 7 days leading up to that grand opening, I pulled 2 all-nighters, which I don't recommend as a grown adult. Not even doing it once, much less twice. Oof. And so that day, we had publicized it. People were ready, and it also just so happened to be National Ice Cream Day. So people were already in the ice cream mood. Mm-hmm. And then we were saying, hey, we've had this food truck for a couple years. Now we're going brick and mortar. Come celebrate with us. And it was crazy.
It was super hot. And we're like, all right, now what? Like, I think 2 Roosters just opened today. We'll go there. And it's like, yeah, everyone had that same idea. I mean, no joke. You had a few thousand people there.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
it was
insane.
Yeah, we had probably an hour wait the whole time we were open. We did a compressed opening day just to give some limited hours.
Yeah.
Hour wait the whole day.
Yeah.
Like
what an opening.
It was insane.
Well, all right, let's move a little forward because I want to get into the idea of ice cream and the business of ice cream. So now, cut to it is a year later. You are about to open up a new location. Now, this is over there at the Person Street Center, which was the same place where I had worked for a while at Standard Foods, RIP. Our partner over here at the kitchen, Raleigh, Mr. Matt Konar, is helping to design it as your architect, putting it together. So walk us through a little bit of that because now you've been doing well. I even saw one of your partners or one of your employees at a pitch meeting at NC State.
Yes,
I was in a mentorship program and I watched him pitch the idea of opening a new shop downtown. And I looked at Felicia and I'm like, that guy, I like that guy. He's like buttoned up and has it all set. Like, I want to invest in 2 Roosters. And then she tapped me and went, yeah, we don't have any money. I went, oh yeah. But if I did.
In a way, you still are supporting us by bringing your family in and,
yes.
filling up those punch cards.
Yes, exactly. So walk us through the new shop, the desire to open the new shop and the desire to do it here in somewhat downtown area of Raleigh.
Yeah. We the first location, it was more just of a practical lifestyle, trying to get our sort of grid for our family life as close as we could. So that's sort of what led us to the North Raleigh shop first because we live in that part of town. It just so happens there was this awesome shopping center and that came available. But we've always loved downtown Raleigh. I've spent so many hours down here with the food truck, with festivals and concerts and just all these one-off things. And I love the vibrancy of downtown now. I went to school at NC State, so we would come a lot. So we've always loved the downtown area. It was just a matter of when and where. So we launched the first one. And in a perfect world, we probably would have waited at least 2 years probably to think about a second store just for the dust to settle and to, restock the coffers with the finances and stuff. As you guys probably know, the construction sort of location process sometimes has a very long tail. Oh, yeah. And for a first scout of a location until a lease is executed, until a shop actually opens its doors, it could be potentially years. Mm-hmm. So we knew that was a very long process. So knowing, okay, we want to be here in the next 2 to 3 years, let's go ahead and start putting the feelers out. And so we did. We engaged our lease person to go scouting. And we were actually looking at a location next to Beasley's Chicken, Ashley Christensen's joint. And through that site tour, learned sort of off the record that there may be a position at Person Street coming available. And they were not legally allowed to say what location. We had sort of a good idea of what it might be.
Yeah.
When the legal dust finally settled on, their lease elements, they came back to us and said, okay, we can finally say this is going to become available. Are you interested? So we said, well, it's a little bit aggressive in our timing because, our other shop's only been open about a year and a half. but this is such a great area. It's such a great location. Can we make this work? At the time, it was May, so it's like right in the beginning of ice cream season. So we were like, well, if we start doing construction now, we won't be open until November. So we decided to do a pop-up. And so that's how the summer ran at Person Street. We were able to run it for about almost 4 months.
Were you
in the
just
summer.
making ice cream over
We're
at
still making
North
ice
Raleigh?
cream at North Raleigh and then hustling, bringing it down in our van, pretty much every day.
Yeah.
And so that's how it happened. We signed that lease. It never went on the open market. Like, no one ever knew about it because we had been scouting these others and had a relationship with the brokers. And so that's, sometimes that's, you sort of have to put yourself in the way of chance, as it were.
Yeah. So you had a lease, but for a pop-up, and now you were able to sign a full-time lease?
Yeah. So there was,
and you're going to do a full build-out and make ice cream there separately?
yeah, there was actually sort of two construction building lease arrangements. So we had one for the summer pop-up, and then we did some work during the summer. We got ready for the second one, and now this one is a full construction. We're adding a kitchen in the back so we can make ice cream there, a huge walk-in freezer, so to make it more of a home.
Nice.
So with this second location now, and arguably third or now fourth, we didn't really even get into the whole Durham Bulls thing.
Yeah.
If you live in the Triangle and you haven't gone to a Durham Bulls game, you are missing out so hard.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like baseball.
Oh, it's a great place to go. Have a beer, have a hot dog, and just chill.
Check out Two Roosters if
Left field.
If you're in the left field.
Left field,
There you
right underneath the huge bull.
go.
Right,
That's
right
yeah.
underneath.
Right under the balls.
That's
I'm just kidding. So now that you will ultimately, when you're all open and ready to go, you have two full-size kitchens to do a lot of production. Is there a thought to do more production beyond those two walls? Meaning, can people, other businesses, other shops buy your stuff in retail?
Yeah, so that's something where the next big hire that I'll do is a full-time pastry ice cream person. Right now, we just sort of piecemeal the production. I do a lot of it. I've trained some of our other staff to do some of the lighter production, but I want to hire someone that's their thing, and they sort of work with me hand in hand to figure out our new flavors and to do production, to do ordering, all the fun stuff that kitchen workers do. So with that, we would love to grow into actually the wholesale, some doing more wholesale, because I get inquiries all the time I got one just a couple of days ago from a restaurant here in Raleigh that just inquiring, do you do wholesale? And up till now, the scale, we just haven't been able to do that, because it's like either we sell this tub of ice cream to a restaurant and we don't have any for the scoop shops, or we just stick to what we know in the scoop shops.
But how killer would that be to have like the flavors that you do and have them paired with like a dessert pastry chef in town?
Yeah, it's coming.
But I almost think, and this is no offense, but a place like Ashley Christensen, for example, and Andrew, they're going to make their own ice cream. I think it's more for like the brewing concerned places who maybe don't have an in-house pastry chef, or like American Tobacco, who might not, and be like, how cool would it be to get Two Roosters ice cream there?
But and we've talked about this before about ketchup, right? Jeff Sizer ketchup. If you can make better ketchup than Heinz 57, then fine, go for it. But you can't, because it's like a perfect product. You could spin your wheels. Jeff Sizer, he's a great chef. Jesse Barden over there, I'm sure they could make their own ice cream. Do they want to spin all their wheels making ice cream all day long? Or could they just get Jared to go bring over some great ice cream and then expand upon it by having like a great flourless dark chocolate cake with some of your bourbon ice cream, like literally that's sitting right in front of me.
Yeah, bourbon coffee, which is delicious.
Oh, shout out to Slingshot Coffee and Mystic Bourbon. That's what you're tasting right now.
Nice.
Yeah, this
This is not kid friendly. Coffee and bourbon.
Yeah,
But, I'm sure.
Big kid.
Yeah. Jonathan and Jenny Bunchak, other former guests of our show,
love
and
those guys.
nice supporters of the show. But going back to that discussion, I think that if you have your own pastry chef, they're probably going to want to make their own ice cream. I would think.
possibly.
Yeah, that's when I have conversations with all those guys.
If
and
you don't own a Paco Jet or something.
Yeah, exactly. Well, think about Ashley Christensen, her group, how much ice cream that they probably go through.
That's true.
They're spinning, and I know because I'm friends with them. They're spinning it at 1.5 gallons a time at a sitting.
Yeah.
Every batch. And so
Not
if
a
you think
lot of
about
ice
the
cream.
production, I mean, someone is there all day long making ice cream.
So they could cut back on hours and stuff like that,
or just be more inventive with flavors. You
hear that, Ashley? Hire two roosters.
She's a friend, so she's great. And we actually, side note, some of their equipment broke down over like a few months ago, and they came into our kitchens and we shared and had,
sounds like
had
espionage.
Fun.
That's a perfect. They're stealing your recipes.
I didn't even think about that. Man, I'm so naive.
Here, I thought I was helping our friend.
No, they're great.
So that's the next step is wholesale to other restaurants rather than retail, and like you guys being in Whole Foods or Harris Teeter or let's say Food Line, etc.
Yeah, I've gotten some great advice actually from Jonathan and Jenny Slingshot. I mean, the grocery market is just it's a different business model really because the margins, the distribution, the production cycles, it's all so different. So we just sort of I've always been a person like do what you're really good at. Just be really great at one thing, and that's making ice cream and serving it to people.
Right. And
so to think about the grocery store part, we've gotten inquiries about that. But to me, it's just outside of sort of our business model now. Wholesaling in the sense of, hey, Max, you got a dinner party. You need more than a couple pints. Like you want 2 gallons of the coffee bourbon ice cream. Yeah. Like now we're able to sustain that for our customers and then local restaurant
businesses.
So you don't. I don't want to collapse the business. I don't want to get too big too fast.
So, and this question will kind of lead into another question. But so, how shelf stable is your product, and how long? I mean, it's a frozen product, so could it just be in the freezer for forever?
Yeah, I always say 6 months. I mean. Technically, if you made a batch of ice cream and you put it in a deep freeze, let's talk -20 environment, and the door, the freezer door never gets opened. Now, the quality and the taste might get a little funky, but actually being able to eat that product, I mean, I don't know if there is a shelf life.
Right.
Like I wouldn't eat, a 5-year-old. It's not quite like wine. Like the longer it sits, the better. It does have some
the quality
degradation.
But if you were like in the The Walking Dead, and it's like 6 years into it, or whatever, and you came across
you would eat the ice cream, right?
an old deep freeze that somehow miraculously stayed on this whole time. You'd eat it.
Yeah. So 6 months. I always say I should caveat. Our ice cream that we make, it never lasts more than about 2 weeks because our churn is just so high.
That stabilization question I wanted to lead into was more for wholesale and for retail and all that. You talk about like the big companies that everyone knows, like Ben & Jerry's and Haagen-Dazs and all that. Where do you see Two Roosters? And do you see yourselves rubbing elbows with Ben and Jerry and Hagen?
Maybe
and
just
Daz?
Jerry. We can be Jerry and Jared. I don't know.
There you go.
That's a great question. I get that question a lot, and
I guess it's not that great then.
Well, it is because I'm constantly
obvious.
I'm constantly thinking about it. Like I'm constantly reminded of people want to know. Like people want to know where is Two Roosters going? What can I expect? And I think I read this great book, Small Giants, and you feel free to check it out. But the whole idea is companies that are intentionally small. And for me, that's my dream, to be intentionally small with a great product, a great brand. At this point in the life of the business, I have no desire to move outside the triangle. I mean, I think if we could get up to, 6 or 8 stores, and that's a good life.
You have somebody else making the ice cream for you.
That's the ultimate goal, actually.
Hand it off, right?
Like to make myself obsolete, whether it's making ice cream, like just all the detail work that a small business owner has to do.
If you could just
to
work
scale
yourself
it
out of a job and then just pick up the checks at the end of the month.
There you
something
go.
like that.
Yeah, make the hard decisions and all that, but
to just keep being the visionary, right? I had the vision, 7 years ago. It started from nothing, right? It was just this idea. I really love ice cream. It's all about storytelling. I have this amazing childhood experience of my family on the porch. Can we be quirky enough to name it Two Roosters so people ask why the name? And so it's all of those things. And so for me, the hometown boy, I love our city. I love the Triangle. I'm from here. And to me, staying intentionally small.
Your ice cream and the story is rich. Before we get out of here, though, we didn't talk about ice cream at all. So
Well, can I ask one more business question and then we'll get into ice
only
cream?
4 more hours, and we'll submit this to Forbes podcast.
Now that you've been on the NCF&B podcast, which many millionaires listen to, what if Daddy Warbucks calls you tomorrow after hearing the story and going, I could totally launch this nationally. This is a great brand. I mean, everything about what you're doing, and we'll get into the flavors because that's what it's all about.
Sure.
You could market this all over the country. There's no way anyone wouldn't want to eat Two Roosters ice cream anywhere else in this world, you know. But so with that said, someone's like, here's $250,000. How can we make this national? Would you accept that, and would you go with it? Would you try to figure out a way to do it, or decline?
That's a great question. I actually got an email yesterday from a distant friend who saw that, said, "Hey, if you ever need me, just give me a call. We'd love to chat." So I do get those sort of solicitations. I think it all goes back to my personal lifestyle, sort of like what do I envision for my family, and then the business. How do I fit the business into that? And I've seen a lot. I'm sure you guys have too. Seen a lot of people lose their soul over pursuing just something.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the double-edged sword of a business owner. It's like growing versus some sanity and balance to life. And so for me, it's like I don't know if I would accept that check.
I guess if you could get to the point, and this rings true, it's not dissimilar to what the gents from Trophy and Crankarm mentioned on the podcast when we talked about expanding beyond North Carolina, and they both kind of had the idea of saying, no, we're pretty happy in North Carolina. I mean, not everyone knows about our beer, and we're making money, so if everyone knew about our beer and we sold it everywhere, we'd make a lot of money. So I like the idea of it's almost the new American dream is about quality of life as opposed to just world domination. And it used to just be take your dream and expand it around the world, be a multi-billionaire. Yeah. But now it's like take your dream, learn how to expand upon it. And I think where the perfection lies in is when you do hand off the business of the building, the making, all that stuff. Like you're kind of getting to that point right now. If you could find someone that could make your product as good or maybe better than even the way you're doing it, and now you just observe from the higher side, the 30,000 foot view, that's when you can make those decisions like, okay, now I have the comfortability of that. If I wanted to expand, I could, because I've already removed myself from the process.
That's right. Yeah, that's a great insight. And I think that a lot of people that come on the podcast probably share that, that tension of where is this thing going? Whatever I've created, how far does this thing go?
Yeah.
And I think that's a very personal question. Just everyone has to sort of answer for themselves. Again, I come from a 2-stoplight town, and I think it's just the small town boy in me that's living in a bigger city like Raleigh, that I want the people of the Triangle, Raleigh, Durham, et cetera, to be proud of Two Roosters, like what we're trying to do, how we try to treat people. I try to tell my staff it's very simple. What we do is treat people like we want to be treated and make ridiculously good ice cream. And there's a lot of nuances in there, but at the end of the day, when I come in and I see families like yours, Max, come to the shop, like to me, that's winning. When someone continually fills up punch cards because we want to provide some sort of loyalty for them coming back and just continuing to reinvent ourselves, like our menu. We have the staples that will always be on the menu, and then we have our fun sort of rotating guest flavors that we get super amped about.
What are some of those flavors? And actually, before we even get into the flavors, what are the tips for somebody that's also into ice cream and wants to make some at home? I mean, I know we got like milk and sugar to make ice cream, but what else? What are some of the tips, the insider tips?
Yeah, well, it's sort of a loaded question because there's a lot of nuances in the ice cream making process. But if you want custard, always go with eggs because eggs provide a good stabilizer. So your consistency and scoopability works well when you have some sort of egg yolk in the mix. But for me, I do what they call a quote Philadelphia style when I'm doing it at home. It's a simple 2-to-1 ratio of whole milk 2 parts cream, heavy cream, and 1 part whole milk. And then ratios of sugar, depending on if you're adding stuff into it that already has sugar. So, yeah, it's
And then
a fairly
does the
simple
quality
process.
of the milk or the eggs or the initial product kind of matter at the
I
end?
don't think for a home use,
No.
I would say that there's no real.
'Cause once you put that much
Yeah.
sugar into something, it's going to
Yeah, the sugar just helps it all, like to be able to scoop it.
Yeah.
It's sort of like sorbet in a way. It's like if you were to just freeze water, it's going to turn into ice. But if you add sugar to that water, it'll be a little slushy. So that's sort of the base idea of ice cream. You have to have something you add, whether it's sugar or egg or a combination of both, or you can get all fancy with guar gum and carrageenan and all kinds of stabilizers if you really want to be that guy.
Do you play around with any of that stuff?
I used to,
Okay.
but that's what the dairy is for. I mean, there are literal dairy scientists that figure out the ratios. I mean, I could do it.
Yeah.
It's just the scale. It's like it's almost like how far do you take that process? Do you want to be a dairy farmer that milks your cows and also scoops ice cream to give to your customers? To me, that at some point I'm
scalability
outsourcing
and back
something.
to quality of life.
Yeah.
And then so I know your grandmother had a book of recipes, and there's some you mentioned one book, but I don't think that Small Giants had any recipes. But what are some other ice cream inspirations?
Oh gosh, my wife. We had to literally just buy a new bookshelf at home because I have so many books on various things, but half of them are about ice cream. So I would recommend some of them. Like Jenny's has a recipe book that's really useful. Malcolm Stogo, he's the one that taught me sort of how to make ice cream. He's like a legend. I think he pretty much wrote the textbook on how to open an ice cream business.
Malcolm Stogo.
Okay. Yeah. He's getting quite aged now, but he's been around a long time.
Well, let's talk about some of these flavors. You have the core, which I have right in front of me. You got the coffee bourbon. You got a double fold vanilla. You have the classic chocolate. My little one, Charlotte's favorite, Girl Scout mint. I think she just likes because it's got the Girl Scout on there. Roasted strawberry and honey. So good. Sola cinnamon and donut, which was the winner last year, I believe, of the March Madness, contest that you did. And then because they won, you gave it away for free.
We just gave it away, yeah.
Which is why you weren't on our podcast last year.
True.
Yeah. I remember getting the email at midnight.
true.
He was supposed to be on the show the very next morning, and he's like, yeah, bro, we ran out of all of our ice cream, literally everything. So I'm staying
to
up
make more
all night to make ice cream just so we could be open tomorrow. Can we set another day? And it only took about 363 days until we got it back.
Give or take.
But you've had some crazy flavors too. Like you had pizza.
Yeah, we did a pizza.
And it tasted like pizza.
Yeah, it was super weird. I said it was surprisingly not disgusting.
Yeah, I had it. I just don't understand. Were you using tomato water or how did you get the sauce flavor?
Tomato paste.
Tomato paste.
Yeah, and basil paste, and a little garlic, and a few other ingredients. I don't know if I can share it all.
Yeah, you can't. Don't give it away. No.
Yeah.
But that's cool because you try it and it's granted, you might not want a triple scoop of
pizza ice cream,
but you definitely want to try it.
Yeah.
It's delicious. It's unlike anything you've ever had before. And I think if you gave a scoop to one of these pre-mentioned chefs, like a Jeff Sizer or a Scott Crawford or so, I bet they could do something crazy on their dessert menu with something like that. But
Yeah.
But that was cool. What's something else? What's something else you're experimenting with right now?
Yeah, so part of that foundation, even for Two Roosters as a business, is the collaboration part. We love to support other local guys just doing some awesome stuff, and we live in an area that has an incredible amount of purveyors that are doing some wonderful things all over the board in food and beverage. So for me, it's like my Bob Ross palette. It's like I have this wonderful playground to use of ingredients and profiles and people that I want to work with. So that's really exciting to me. So some of the sort of fun things, like we did a few months ago, we did a baker series. So I partnered up with 5 bakers in town. And you guys mentioned, I don't know if he's been on the show, but Andrew Ullum.
He has been.
Recently, yeah.
Yeah, so I partnered with him to do a buttered croissant and blueberry jam ice cream. So that was
horrible.
Yeah, I know, right? And so literally we like pulverized Andrew's fresh buttered croissants and got it into the base. So the base of the ice cream tasted like a croissant with a jam ripple. It was pretty intense.
Wow.
That's just one example of many that we love to do.
What's your favorite savory flavor that you've ever done?
This was super weird. It was a mung bean. Do you know, like mung beans are they look like little green peas.
Yeah.
It was for a Thanksgiving menu. So for the guest flavors, we want to do all Thanksgiving sort of inspired. And I thought, well, people love green bean casserole, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be kind of weird to do actual casserole, but what if we tried a green bean ice cream? So that's how I got onto the green bean, and it's super weird because it tastes like peanut butter. It tasted like an earthy peanut butter. Yeah, it was.
And so that was your favorite? Like personally for you to eat if you...
It was my favorite in the sense of it sort of blew my own mind. I did not expect that outcome.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it was sampled a lot. Not a lot of people ate it because we labeled it as green bean ice cream.
Which goes back to your earlier statement, everybody loves green bean casserole. I'm not sure if that's accurate. But maybe some people do, and a lot of people tolerate
it. Sounds a whole lot better than mung bean ice cream.
That's a good point. Yes.
Well, Matt, do we have anything else before we get out of here?
No, I mean, I think you've said it all when it comes to ice cream and business, man.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, so your new location, this was recorded a little while ago, and now we are anticipating hopefully a March opening.
Yeah, March, April.
And so, already throwing April in there.
I know, well,
you gotta give yourself
yeah, exactly.
But obviously, check you guys out on Instagram at 2 Roosters, and you figure it out as far as when it comes out. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you guys.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
I'm glad you finished all your ice cream.
Oh, delicious. Go to 2 Roosters. You will eat very merrily.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the NC F&B podcast. And if you've stuck with us this long, review us on iTunes, and remember, 5 stars are encouraged.